Housekeepers who worked in casinos, hotels. What's the weirdest thing you walked into? A couple came to this luxury dude ranch I worked at and spent over $5,000 to stay there only to not come out of their room the entire time. Went in to clean the room when they left and saw incredibly expensive and opened alcohol and boxes of 6 toys around the room. On the bed they left a note that said enjoy. What? We threw out the toys. Who the duck would use a used 6 toy left by an unknown person? And got hammered that night. I worked in a casino where I watched a middle-aged man literally shake a solid turd down his pant leg, sit back down and continued on his machine. I turned around with backpack vacuum on and went to my lunch break. I didn't get paid enough to pick up stranger's sheet. Not me. But my friend from Ukraine worked at a crappy casino hotel in Wendover, Nevada, because they would sponsor his work visa. He wasn't a housekeeper but would have to do maintenance in rooms. He said one day he went to a room where the people had already checked out and there was a chicken in the room. Like a live chicken. Just chilling there. Maybe the story is funnier when he tells it with his accent. Why is chicken in room? I was a housekeeper at a dive of a hotel in Chico, CA in the late 90s. A week or so before, a local homeless woman had stuck her arm in a tiger's cage, a circus that was traveling through town, and got mauled. That weekend I was cleaning rooms and knocked on the door of a room paid for by a local charity organization. It turned out the guest was in the middle of sexy time. Quickly realizing it wasn't a good time to clean the room, I said I would come back later. To my dismay, the woman opened the door and asked me to join her and her friend. I declined. She then reached out and grabbed me by the arm and tried to drag me in. Her arm was covered in bandages and lacerations. It was the woman who had been tiger mauled. I yanked my arm free and ran away. I'll never forget what her shredded bandaged hand looked like. I worked for a hotel chain in Colorado, and one day my co-worker and I went to strip a bed and the bed was full of oranges. The dresser oranges. Side table. Cans of mandarin oranges. Not exactly shocking or disgusting, but it was weird. Someone I know worked housekeeping at a casino. He walked in on a guy smearing sheet over the walls with his bare hands. He was pissed that he lost money and thought he was justified to do it. Housekeeping called security. He was charged and banned. Cleaned a room that contained both a deck of Uno cards and a knockoff deck of Ono cards. I think about this question every time I go to Vegas. Vegas housekeeping would be the highest rated reality show ever. This is related but not exactly the question. When my wife and I were looking at wedding venues, one we went to was a hotel. The event manager wanted to take us up and show us the honeymoon suite. She opened the door, and there were 2 old men, like 60s 70s, shirtless, drinking vodka in the room. She was so extremely embarrassed and apologetic. She was very sweet too, but you could tell she was so mad at whoever screwed that up for her. We didn't choose the place, wasn't why, but I hadn't thought about that in a while, and figured someone else may get a kick out of it. I used to work in reservations in a big chain hotel in London. Housekeeping once told us there was one regular guest who used to always leave a single whole intact raw egg in the bed when they checked out. Nobody ever figured out why or where on earth they got that single raw egg in the middle of central London. Grocery stores aren't frequent in the area and they certainly don't sell eggs one by one. Edit. My first silver. Thank you very much. Edit 2. I didn't say it's a mission impossible to get eggs in London. There's a bit of overreaction here. But the type of guest hotel area combination. The whole situation was particularly peculiar. Worked housekeeping for a few weeks. Guess the weirdest sheet was a 70-ish couple left their room, so I went to clean it. Big bottle of Kai and a dildo so big even Ron Jeremy would have been jealous, left out on the bed. We had a hotel room one time and checked in around 3-4ish. Can't remember what hotel it was. When we walked in, one of the housekeepers was asleep in the chair. Apparently had taken a rest and checked out. For who knows how long. We woke her up when we came in the room. She was very apologetic and took her cart and stuff with her right away. We never said anything to the staff or saw her again. The room was all clean and set up, so nothing to complain about. I walked in on a couple sleeping on the bathroom floor of a hotel room in the hotel I work for. The bed was untouched and everything was normal with that one exception. I worked as a concierge for an upscale hotel, so naturally, because there wasn't a line for my desk, I fielded complaints regularly. One day a woman, very nice and patient, rare, calmly explained to me that her 5-year-old opened the door to their bathroom and there was a housekeeper pooping in there. The housekeeper and the boy screamed so loudly that I had already gotten noise complaints from the adjacent rooms. Needless to say, that family got a free night and an upgrade. Not my story, but a friend was a maid at a cheap hotel in our university town. She has a bunch of gross and weird stories, but the most insane is when she came into work and found a full abandoned meth lab in the bathroom of one of the rooms. Her manager made her clean up a bunch of trash from the different ingredients and scrub chemical stains that must have been left by spills. Apparently the room smelled like a bad science experiment, or just normal meth, and the management refused to get any police involved. I imagine they believed it would discourage their regular clientele. I believe she quit very soon after. Had a teacher who was the manager of Marriott in Germany for a while. She has wild stories. Once found an anaconda in the bathroom. Wrapped around the shower curtain pole. Pulled naked devil worshippers out of the pool at 3 AM when the pool closed and they refused to get out. They weren't even guests. Saw the janitor with a wheelbarrow, a hose, and a shovel. He went somewhere. Went to lunch and came back. After his lunch she followed him and asked what was up. He didn't speak good German and just said cleaning up African lady leg. Turned out some lady had jumped from the top floor of one side of the building. Hotel was kind of like an L shape. One side higher than the other. Hit the emergency ladder on the way down and had her leg torn off before becoming mush on the roof of the other side of the building. He had shoveled most of her into the wheelbarrow at this point. Was just working on getting her leg unstuck from the ladder. Edit, bad grammar. The janitor did not lynch anybody, I think. Also, thanks for the silver anon. Was on a youth trip with my church. Guys stayed in one room, girls stayed in the other. All us bored kids start looking around the room. Yeah, no, because kids. And we found a nug of weed under the bed. Super big find for a couple of church kids. We go to tell the girls what we found and they go on to tell us they did the same thing and found blood all over the wall. TLDR, found weed and blood. Not me, but my husband used to manage a hotel in our town. Our town is very industrial in Alberta. That gave the town away right there. So when oil was high, all the hotels were full of drillers and rig pigs and frack boys. So one morning, the housekeepers were cleaning a room and saw a 10 inches thick dildo with ribbed edges. Metal, I believe they thought it was. Course no one touched it to confirm. Left it where it was and finished cleaning the room. Older tough looking guy was renting the room. No one said anything and he didn't say anything either. This was about 10 years ago. I was in a guy for a casino. Got a call that a guest couldn't get his device connected to the Wi-Fi. So I had to go up and give him a hand. Come to get his tablet connected. He's in the room. Older guy, 60 plus. Wearing a pair of gold booty shorts. He's got 3 girls, IDs meant they had to be 21. But they weren't much more than that, in there with him. Thongs and fuzzy high-heeled slippers. Topless. Shameless. They want to connect the iPad so he can play some video to go along with the game they're playing. Couple bags of toys and tubes of stuff scattered all around the room. 2 of the girls were getting impatient and already playing with each other by the time I got there. I've got my own kinks, so who am I to judge? Got his stuff connected. And they were able to get his movie. And got it playing on the TV in the room. He tipped me a small baggie of X and Molly and a couple $100. All in $50. I took the money. And let him keep the Drew Gus. Find out later. He was a VIP card member. And typically dropped $20 grand or so on the tables. My grandfather used to work at a posh resort where many celebrities checked in. He told us that Bill Cosby always trashed the room and left behind a huge mess with no tip for the housekeepers. This was back when Cosby was viewed as America's dad. Now it doesn't seem strange at all. I don't know about them, but I was working on a job in a shady part of Yakima, WA called Yakima. We were working 12-14 hour days. I just left my gum in the drawer, and I'm not a cluttery person, so I just empty my pockets into the nightstand drawer every night. One day I left my gum, a roll of duct tape, some big zip ties and a knife in the drawer. When I came back, room was clean and the drawer was organized nicer. After that, the housekeeping lady would scuttle away upon my visage. I stayed at a hotel that hosted a Magic the Gathering tournament, was visiting Atlantic City. Only realized what it was as I played Magic a decade ago. In the morning as I was leaving, a housekeeper had a room opening and cleaning. He stops me and says, "WTF is this? Is it worth money?" I look in and someone has filled the bathtub nearly to the brim with land comments. My mother was once a housekeeper at a Harrah's casino hotel. She opened up a room and a terrible smell hit her. Apparently a handicapped man staying at the hotel was waiting for his help to show up, but they never did, and his sheet had overflowed its container and his phone was dead and he couldn't move. She went to go find help and left that day and never came back. I can answer this one. Worked at a huge water park resort. I was doing a late shift at a time of year when the resort was almost empty. So, tired of knocking on all the doors, I just barged into the rooms. To clarify, I always knocked, but I was getting tired after 20 or so rooms without a guest. Come this room in the 4th floor. I walk in and there's an old, heavy guy feasting on a bucket of fried chicken. Lights off. In front of the TV. He stared at me for a couple of seconds and I apologized before he could say anything. Left the room immediately. I later found out that room was supposed to be vacant. I have no idea where he came from, why he was there or how he got there. Hotel worker. Had an American guy come into our hotel. Meant to be staying for 3 days. Went into his room and never left the room in over 2 weeks. He kept phoning down to extend his stay. The strange thing was, he had the same routine every day. Around 8 AM. He would order 8 bottles of beer and 20 cigarettes to be sent up to his room. He'd sign the check off to his room for the beers but had to pay cash for the cigarettes as they came from the hotel shop, which wasn't owned by the hotel, therefore wasn't able to charge to the room. The cigarettes came to around £11, and he would always give us a £20 note and told us to keep the change. Lunchtime rolls around, and again, 8 bottles of beer and 20 cigarettes. Come dinner time, again, another 8 beers, but 40 cigarettes this time, assuming to keep a stock of when the shop closed at night time. This happened every day he was staying with us. No one ever saw him leave the hotel, so assumed he had a stack of £20 notes to pay for his cigarettes. He also instructed housekeeping not to clean his room. When he eventually left, the maid was greeted with hundreds of empty beer bottles. The bin was half full with cigarette ends and ash, and the room was left remarkably clean, albeit smelling awful. We tried to research the guy, but could only find he was part of an American broadcasting company. It was a long time ago and can't remember, so assumed he was over here to lie low. He checked out, paid off his bill, didn't even bother to check the bill, into a taxi and never to be seen again.